Our brains are wired to gather information and make predictions about what's going to happen. And that whole wiring is really all about assumptions. By rejecting those assumptions, it forces us to really dive in and ask, what alternatives can we come up with? Neurosurgery is a thinking man's game. It's not about the dexterity or how good you are with your hands. It's a mental game, and you have to go in and be strategic about how you do your operations. This is sort of like the war room where we get the strategy. I think it's what makes the difference in these cases.
So I think the only people that we end up getting for the most part are really strategic thinkers.
A teacher had told me in elementary school to pursue neurosurgery when I was as a preschooler. I distinctly remember asking someone, what is the coolest job that someone could have? And that's what that teacher had told me. If they had said some other job, I might have been doing that. They said that has got to be the coolest thing a person can do. It's like, all right, well, that's what I'm going to do then.
The reality of neurosurgery is the 7 years of training is just a start.
Obviously, we are not short-term thinkers because half of us aren't going to have a real job until we're nearing 40. You made a decision probably when you're 21 that you want to have delayed gratification for for us it's 13 more years. And I think it's very self-selecting.
For me, I am paranoid and type A like most surgeons and always presume the worst case scenarios. So for me, it helps to think of what are the worst case possible scenarios I could encounter.
You have to have rehearsed that so well. You have to let everybody else know before you need to pivot, hey, by the way, if this negative things happen, you're doing this, we're all on the same page.
Going deeper and deeper in your thinking about your strategy, and with tenacity, all these things start to fall into place. And they don't fall into place by just, doing a 3-month rotation and peering over a shoulder and looking at the stuff. You really have to just dive in super deep and ask these tough questions, watch, try it yourself, run into a few walls, make some mistakes, start piecing this together.
Because you can't predict what's going to happen in the ICU. People want to know, oh, what's the recovery going to be like? What's going to happen after we leave the ICU? How long is she going to be on the ventilator for? It's not like I came to residency with this knack for flexibility, right, and adaptability, but it's a necessary attribute to learn and adopt to be effective as a physician.
I think it's really important as surgeons, especially in our discipline, because things can change on a dime and you can be in a very tough spot quickly. I think it's one of the things that makes the really great surgeons great.
We're essentially trained to be adaptable. Adaptability, you have to learn very quickly. There's many times where you're in a surgery and imaging gives us our best guess of what might be going on, but we counsel many patients all the time that, hey, this is what we believe is going on based on our years of experience and what we've seen prior, but ultimately what comes down is what happens when we open up. Sometimes we get into a surgery and something that we thought we expected is not the case. And now all of a sudden, you're forced to really quickly change your train of thought.
I think for these tough cases, you have to have a really good strategy, a clear strategy in mind.
To have that flexibility of mind to say, I learned how to do it one way, but I'm going to abandon that, right? And I'm going to try something else.
Strategy is knowing what not to do. Because when you define your strategy, you're basically saying, I can't do this, I won't do that, this one isn't going to work, and then your strategy becomes what you've already decided you're not going to do.
Because I was really a jazz musician. That was my alternative career. It was not being a writer. I was a jazz musician. I went to Eastman School of Music, Berklee College of Music, and that was all about learning how to improvise. You got to learn how to play your instrument. These are the chords. Now make it up. You think you're doing the same thing every time, but you and I know that you're not. That you have to be creative when you get in there, because what you think you're going to see, when your 3D image that you create in your mind, when you get in there, sometimes it's different. Or obviously, you know, the tumor's more firm than you think it's going to be, or the blood vessel is in your way, and how are you going to get out of that?
Well, there's a creativity that comes from reacting to unexpected events in the OR, and that's understood.
100% of the time, there's going to be something kind of out of left field that's going to challenge you, whether that's like, I don't know, a unique scar they have on their back right where you need to go, and how do we incorporate that, or whether it's something kind of more complicated like some anatomical variant of a blood vessel that you can't see on MRI, but once you take the skull off, it's right there, and it's actually right where we need to go, and how are we going to deal with that? So there's always something. It's just a matter of how big it is, or how many tools you have to employ to work around it.
So it all sounds simple when you're looking at the angiogram, which is what you need. You got to have your strategy in mind, because when you get in there and you're looking at this, and it's a lot more complicated, then you got to be able to execute the strategy.
At a certain point in three-dimensional microsurgical vascular work, you're seeing patterns that repeat, and you're memorizing moves. And so I think vascular control during a bleeding event is about slowing the time down, memorizing the moves, and seeing the patterns. And I think learning that so that when you have that event happen, you know how to do it is a really key skill.
That visualization goes a long way. And knowing the anatomy, this is part of the beauty of this field, is we get to work with amazing anatomy. It's divine. Part of that visualization is anticipating what you can do, because you know that operation like the back of your hand, to avoid that unforeseen event that will make you have to kind of bend the map and adapt to the new situation you're in.
Strategic thinking is really the antidote to surgical assumptions. When you know that many of our assumptions will melt away, that's when we have to resort to strategy, which, when you boil that down, is about thinking things through at a deeper level and trying to find answers for when we have nothing else.